Okay. You guys see the front page here? It says one new idea. Hello. Okay. I'm gonna take that as yes. You can, since there's only two of you, you're welcome to leave your mics open because it's not going to be a problem. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's going to be sound in the background for me, so
okay.
That's why.
Got you. Okay, so basically, I just want to quickly, you can just pop your mic open when you want to do this. Obviously, your names are clear. If you'd like to share really quickly, just so we get a chance to know who you guys are, what you do and why you're here, what you want to get out of this webinar. Manfred, would you like to share?
Sure. I'm looking to find, in fact, I have other ways to just, I don't know, sharpen my creativity, or just ways to open it up just a little bit more. And yeah, because now I'm also scripting, so I'm working on a script, and yeah, just ways to have more ideas.
Okay, fantastic. Ingrid, would you like to quickly share what it is you do that you would like to get out of being here?
Hi, yeah. So I'm more interested in the innovation side of things. So how to use creativity to get more innovation, and yeah, just the power of creativity.
Okay, so the focus of what we're going to do tonight is very much looking at how you can apply some of those principles very directly to creating one way of approaching your year differently, right? And some of what we're going to touch on is the kind of principles that you're talking about. Some of it's not, right? But I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on the things you guys have said, so that we get the stuff you really want to get out of this, and not necessarily all of the things that you would otherwise do. That make sense?
Okay.
So really quickly, just to give you a clarity on who I am, right? I have a company called Create Your Creativity. We do a training called the Innovation Explosion, which is an entrepreneur-focused training for people to go into looking at how the processes that they've done up until now have gotten in the way of having new ideas and thinking creatively and innovatively. I'm a certified coach as a creativity coach, but also a life coach, NLP coach, and executive coach. And I do a lot of writing as well for Medium and other online platforms. And currently, I'm also a creative professional, have been for a long time. Currently, I'm working on a TV series called Indaba My Children, which is give me just a second. Which is a book by Credo Mutwa. I don't know if you guys know Credo Mutwa, but he's one of the most important figures in South African culture. Now 96 years old, but he wrote this book in the 1960s, and we're doing a TV series based on it. I'm an African American, you can see on the top, meaning I'm a citizen of both countries. I went to school in the States. I studied also film and television, New York Film Academy. I started a school called the Academy of Television and Screen Arts. And, okay, hold on.
Oopsie, sorry, that's, yeah.
Okay. And I've worked throughout Africa as a television professional. And particularly there's a show called Jam Sandwich we did a number of years ago, which won a lot of awards. So just giving you a basic kind of idea of who I am and the things I do. What I'd like to be dealing with today is just the following. Do you have something you can write on? Just tell me if you don't, if you need to go get it, right? Idea here is that we try to stay put and focused and participate as fully as you can. With just two of you on this call, there's a lot of opportunity to participate and talk through some of those steps. and please approach, there might be things on here you already know. If there are, please approach them as if you don't know them, right? Now, Ingrid, you already said you probably can't stay till the end, but it's unfortunate because there are some free gifts at the end. But most of all, let's have some fun on the call as long as you're here, right? So it's a 90-minute call. So we're not going to keep calm. We're going to dive into it and start doing stuff right away. The first question I want to deal with is to look at what you can work on this call specifically. So we're not going to just talk in general terms. We're going to work specifically on your company or your project that you're dealing with, that you want to come out of this call with one new idea of how you can approach it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you have clarity on that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Again,
Yes.
I think the best way to approach this, because of any kind of problems you have with technology or anything else, is if you don't have an answer to the step I'm on, please make sure I know that. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. Does that work for you?
All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like you to write down, if you look back at last year, in terms of the project or the company that you're dealing with, what were the 3 biggest achievements that you are proudest of, that you're happiest about? Okay, just to give you an example, just to make it clear, the 3 things that I did last year that I'm proudest about is I launched the workshops that I mentioned earlier and delivered that to a lot of people, finished the draft of the book that I'm going to publish this year, and spoke at a bunch of events around creativity and innovation. So those are the 3 things I'm happiest about what I achieved last year. Would one of you like to share the 3 things that you could put on your list?
All right. On my side, this is it's a new project that I'm taking on for 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. So I haven't done much work around it except buy a couple of books around scripting and take on an online course around that.
Okay.
However, the one project that we did work on together last year was my stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
So last year I managed to enter one stand-up comedy competition and I made it to top 10. So I was a top 10 finalist.
Okay. So for the purpose of this exercise, go ahead and do the 3 things you're proudest of last year in any kind of work that you did. So making the top 10 in the comedy was 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another 2 you have that you could say you achieved?
Okay. Let's see. Oh, setting up my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Setting up my YouTube channel and getting some content on it. I mean, I have 1 video, but it is still content.
Okay. So is that 3?
Yeah, that's 3.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. So Ingrid, we're going to come to you in the next step, if that's cool.
Oh.
Okay, so in my case, I just to give you an example that you can follow along with, I chose that my proudest achievement for me of the 3 is that I finished the book draft, right? The rest of the stuff was great, but for me, finishing the draft of the book is really what mattered. Okay, so if you could now choose the 1 thing that you're proudest of out of that list. Okay, and then I want you to break down a list of another 3 things that you did, actions you took that made that achievement happen. There might be more than 3, but what were the most important ones? So in my case, I wrote the manual for the workshop that I teach, that Amantle was in. I then have used that manual as the basis for the book. So second thing I did is I told people that I'm going to finish the draft of the book by the end of the year. That kind of locked me in to have to get it done, right? And then I've actually set time in my schedule where I could do that work. So those 3 things were what I did to get the book done. So out of those 3, I then said, what is the most important of those 3? And I think for me, what it was telling people that I would finish the draft by the end of the year. Out of all the things, the other things were obviously important, but by telling people that, I realized that what was the most important thing to me was to make sure I delivered on what I promised to people. Right? So, Ingrid, would you be
Yes.
able to share with us what is the proudest achievement of last year in your work? What are the three things you did that were most important, and which one is the most important of those three?
So one of the things I was proudest of is participating in 16 days of activism, proactively doing a workshop and a talk and participating in a panel. The three things that I did to make it happen was obviously say yes, take advantage of the opportunity, and then develop a workshop specifically around abuse. What was the other question?
The question was, of those three things, which is the one that mattered the most?
Oh, but actually what mattered the most was developing a workshop around helping people who are abused or who know somebody who is abused.
Okay. And what would you say that in developing that workshop, what was the most important step you took to make that workshop happen?
Most important step was actually being vulnerable and telling my story.
Okay. So being willing to tell your story was the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So now I want to just quickly do this, the opposite. Are there three things you did not get done last year that you think you should have got done, but you didn't? And again, Amantla, because your project is new, you can look at the other work you've done. It'll be a similar result at the end of this process, right? So in my case, again, just to give you an example, I did not manage to get my training into corporate space. I did do some entrepreneur companies, but not corporate companies. I didn't make enough money in my writing to make it worthwhile, and I didn't ever get paid to speak. I only spoke for free, right? So those are three things I thought I should have done last year that it didn't happen. Okay, so if you can write down three things you can think of that you did not manage to achieve. And then same kind of idea, which one of them is the most troublesome to you, the one that you really wish you had had? For me, it was the corporate, purely because it would have made a lot more impact to a lot more people and more money, right? So if I look at what I didn't do that made that not happen, which is the opposite of the other process we did to look at what you did do, right? What I didn't do to make that happen is I didn't do enough long-term planning. I was constantly thinking about the next month, and with corporates, it takes a long time. I didn't do enough research and communication with companies because I was focused on short-term thinking, and I didn't reach out and market enough, right? Now, again, if I look at which one of those three things is actually the most important, I realized that the one that would have made the biggest difference that I didn't do was to just simply have more conversations with the companies, right? I actually met a lot of people in corporate space, but I didn't manage to actually really, really solidly pitch them on why what we were doing was important. So I'd like you to do the same process with the stuff you did not do that made stuff not happen, right? And ultimately what you're trying to get to is, what is the one thing you didn't do last year that would have made the biggest difference in your work?
Okay.
So which
All right,
one
the
of you
three
would,
things that I didn't do last,
yeah, go ahead.
the three things that I didn't do that I would have loved to have done is writing at least 10 jokes a day, like bare minimum, every day, making sure that I have 10 jokes written.
Okay.
And performing bi-weekly or at least once a month, just where hitting an open mic session once, twice a month, 3 times a month, and seeking advice. Because the minute I bombed on stage, I basically never went back. I went for the competition. I made it to top 10. I did another act, and then I bombed completely. So I never went back.
So of those three things, which one is the one that really you feel like was the most important that you should have got done?
Writing at least 10 jokes a day.
Okay, great. And of the idea of not writing 10 jokes a day, what is the thing you didn't do that made that not happen?
To start with was not seeking other ways to generate comedy material.
Okay.
And yeah, and simply just not putting the time and the effort to sit down and get some ideas on paper.
Okay. So of all that, would you say that the most important thing you didn't do is that you didn't, it sounds like you're saying you didn't actually schedule it as a daily activity?
Yes.
Because the other things would have had to happen if
Yeah.
you schedule time every day to say you're going to make sure that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Ingrid, would you
Yeah.
like to share yours?
Yeah, mine's very similar to yours. I run a number of businesses. So the new business is building equality and diversity and inclusion. And last year I did not, the top one is I did not market the business well enough. So I focused on short-term gains in terms of financial income and not long-term gains in terms of sustainability of a new business.
Gotcha. Okay, so the thing you didn't do is to market and make efforts to build that kind of relationship.
Yes.
Okay, great. I mean, not great that you didn't do that, right? But I understand because I didn't do the same thing. So now we're going to turn the corner and look at this coming year, okay? If you look forward in this year, and Amantale, in the case of yours, brand new project, Ingrid, in the case of your business that you just talked about, what are 3 things that you know are going to happen? You know it. It's not a problem, right? You're not worried about it. So again, I'll give you just a brief example in my case. I know that I'm going to make a set of videos of the training that we already do, right? Not only that, I know I'm going to do it twice because I've got a plan to do it by the end of this month with a very low tech version. And then I'm starting a new partnership with an organization that has access to ways to make it much better. So we will in April or May launch an upgraded version of the training. So not just once, but twice there'll be videos. I have no doubt about it. It's already in place, right? The second thing is my book will come out. It's been written. It's been read by a number of people. I have to rewrite and do some work on it, but it's going to come out one way or another this year. The third thing that I know is that there's 2 other books that I've already started working on and that I will finish writing this year. They may not come out this year, but they'll be done being written, right? So that's 3 things I can tell you I know I'm getting done, right? Can you guys quickly share 3 things that you can say you're sure are going to happen in your business?
Okay.
Monthly, go ahead.
All right. One thing for sure that will be happening, I'm going to be performing at least once a month at the Melville Comedy Club. I already have 2 5-minute sets that I have worked on quite thoroughly. I have myself a camera that I'm going to be using to record my sessions on stage, and I bought myself a mini mic that I can just clip on for better audio. That's one. And then I have taken an online course on learning how to write comedy for both stand-up as well as late night. So I know for sure that I'll be able to, after this 10 course, I will be able to write at least 10 jokes per day.
Okay. So those things you're pretty sure are going to happen. No problem.
Or I will be having enough background, enough knowledge to be able to start writing.
Cool. Fantastic.
Yes.
Ingrid, do you have 3 things you know is going to happen?
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Monthly, Ingrid's talking now. We got you.
I know that the new business's website will be up this year. I know that the book around building gender equality will be started. I don't think it'll be and I know that we will be doing corporate training.
Okay, great. So here's the big question. Can you make a list of 3 things you're not so sure are going to happen? And this is where we're just beginning to actually get somewhere now. if you look at my instance, I don't know that the book's going to sell well, right? I don't know if I'm going to make R1 million in profit. And I don't know if I can reach a community of, say, 100,000 followers by the end of the year. But these are three things that I really do want to happen. Okay? So if I look at all of those things, I can also select which one I really want the most of those three. And that is to make that profit jacked up this year to at least R1 million in profit, because that will enable the other things to happen more easily. So again, both of you are welcome to share. What are the things you most want to happen this year, and which of them is the most important to you? Ingrid or Amantle?
Mine, I think the top one in terms of the uncertainty would be not understanding how big the community is that we're wanting to develop around the company Hers and His.
Okay. So you're not sure how big the community is that you want to develop?
Yeah.
And
we're wanting to build, exponentially grow the community, but I don't know. It's uncertain.
is there a sort of target that you could set that you're not certain you could reach, or is it that you just don't know how much you want to do to get to that point?
No, we know what we need to do, and what we will do. It's just we have no idea what the community would be online or how many people would be interested. So I don't even have a number. It's too new.
Okay. Would you like it to be as big as possible, or is it that you actually want to maybe not have it be as big?
I want specific people who are going to do something around or make a difference in terms of building gender equality in their lives or in their corporates. So I'm not wanting 100,000 followers. I'm wanting, if we got 500 relevant, interested people that are doing things, then that would be that would be the right number.
Okay. So because what I'm looking for is that the uncertainty is about how to get to the result rather than what the result is, right? So what I'm hearing, if this is accurate, just let me know, is that the result you want is the most relevant community. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you don't know exactly how to get the most relevant community.
No, that's right. Yeah, no, I don't. And yes, you're right.
Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at is because this is a critical step in this process we're doing tonight, is that we want to be really crystal clear about that this is an achievement you really want to nail, but you're not really sure you can, right? You know you're going to do your best, but maybe it's not as obvious as the ones you've already shared that you know are happening, right? So you want to feel at the end of the year like, wow, you've really assembled a great, relevant community. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. So the question we want to look at really quickly and not really get too deep into right now, but I'm just putting it out there for you, is, what are the things you can do to make that happen, right? And you probably already have a lot of ideas about that. You probably also have some ideas about why it might not happen, right? Why it's not likely to happen. I mean, my thing about making $1 million in profit, I can make a long list of things to do, and I can make a very long list of why it might not work. But I don't want to focus on those things. I just want to put them into the forefront of your thought for a bit, right? I want to take a sidestep for a moment. You guys know Benjamin Zander?
No, I don't.
Okay. Benjamin Zander is a really incredible figure in the space of possibility thinking. He wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. But he's a conductor of Philharmonic Orchestra. He used to be a professor at the Conservatory of Music. And he had a very interesting procedure he used to follow. He would give all of his students at the conservatory an A on day one, right? And he would then tell them to go home and come back a week later having written an essay, right, explaining what they went through during the course of the semester to earn that A. And what this did for them was obviously gave them a map of sorts that they created based on their own understanding in their own lives of what they would have to do to earn that A, right? And
Okay.
he would then base giving them an A at the end of all that based on them executing what they already promised to do. So the idea of the conversation we're having tonight really starts here, is that everything else is just there to give you clarity, make sure that you've looked at the last year and looked at what you're happy about, not happy about, what it is that got you there, and looking forward to this year, what it is you really want to get. So if you were to now look at the next year and say, you are absolutely going to achieve that most uncertain thing, can you take 2 or 3 minutes and sketch out what it is you went through to get that A?
Okay, interesting.
Right? So why did you deserve what you earned at the end of this year? So Ingrid, in your case, obviously you're getting the most relevant community you could possibly dream of.
Yeah. So I've done this exercise already. I can tell you what those 3 are.
Yeah.
In order to get it, what I would need to do this year would be focus on what I want to achieve, consistency in terms of doing consistent work, not in batches, and I can't remember holding on to my passion.
Okay. So if you did that regularly, you should get the result you want.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Amantle, what about you?
All right. Firstly, well, what I did, I made sure to write at least 10 jokes a day. Within 3 months, I could write 120 jokes a day. And then, yeah, I was able to bounce back.
I'm sorry, did you say you're going to write 120 jokes a day within 3 months?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of jokes.
And I made sure to, yeah, that is a lot of jokes. So I made sure to perform twice a month, at least twice a month at an open mic session. Just attend twice a month open mic sessions, do my 5 minutes on set, and yeah, see what is it that I can take out from every session in terms of whether the session was good, what did I do, if the session bombed, what did I do still that did not work.
Got you. Okay. So if you do all that, you will succeed in what you're aiming for.
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, Ingrid, you mentioned that you've done that exercise, so you already kind of knew the answers, right?
Yes.
It's perfect, because I'm now going to take a moment to step away from the process we've been going through to talk about the creative process a little bit. And I'll try to add a little bit of what's not even on these slides, because you both pointed out that you really want to look at your creative thinking, right? Now, Amantle has done some of this conversation, but I bet you'd love to hear it again, right? It's been a while.
Sure.
Okay. Here's the first thing I want to point out. There was a survey done in quite a long time ago, actually, in 1968, which I know very well because that's the year I was born. And it was done by a guy named George Land, who was a major creativity and innovation guru for NASA. Yeah, you know, NASA, the American space program. He worked directly with all the scientists and engineers at NASA to develop their creative skills, right? And he decided at one point to figure out why it was so hard to train grown people to be more innovative. So he went and started studying children. And he studied first of all, a group of 5-year-olds, and he discovered that, ready for this? 98% of 5-year-old children scored at the level of a genius in creativity. He then went back 5 years later and studied the same exact children at 10 years old. Now, Montley knows this, so I'm going to ask Ingrid, do you have any guess as to how many of them were still creative geniuses?
Half.
Say again?
Half. Half of them.
Okay. Not too bad. It was actually 30%. Yeah. At 15, same kids again, 5 years later. Any guess as to how many were still creative geniuses?
Maybe the same, 1/3.
Not even close. 12%. Right?
Wow.
So between the ages of 5 and 15, the same exact people had gone from, most of them, if not at a level of statistical science, that's pretty much, you could say, all of them, right? Down to a level at which only 1 in 10 almost were still at the same level they were. Then he went and did a survey of adults, including the adults he'd already worked with in other contexts, 280,000 adults, a lot of them, right? And this was people over the age of 20. Would you like to just take a stab at how many % of adults scored at the level of creative genius?
No clue.
2%, right? So basically, from 98%, which is statistically almost equal to 100, and 2%, which is statistically almost the same as saying none, right? 5-year-olds, all creative geniuses, adults, none. Okay, so what we learned from this is that creativity is not something we gain, it's something we grow out of, it's something we lose. Something we are born with, we have there at the beginning without a problem, but somehow we lose the creativity we're born with. And a lot of people have tried to explain this in different ways. There's a very famous TEDx video in which a guy named Ken Robinson, it's in fact the most watched TEDx video of all time. He theorizes and talks about how the education system has basically been designed in a way that will remove all creativity from us. I believe that there is a equally important, if not more fundamental, problem, right? And that is this. Human beings are not comfortable with uncertainty. Very few of us are comfortable with it. Even as children, we're not so comfortable with it. But it's built into us at the beginning to be comfortable with uncertainty at all times. There's something I like to say, which is like, if if you have children around, Ingrid, do you have children in your life, or have you had them around?
Yeah, I've got 3. They're young adults.
But they at some point were small.
Yeah, sure.
So I like to point out that if children had the mind of adults, they would never walk, right? Because we are not comfortable when something fails 2 or 3 times. We decide that that has taught us a lesson, right? And most people are very good at judging what has happened and putting it into a box. And we quickly build a landscape of boxes, which we describe as our personality. And most of the time, everything that we deal with is basically based on what we already know, right?
Yeah.
If I ask people in a crowd when I've given a talk to raise their hand if they'd like to be more innovative or creative, everybody raises their hand, even very creative people. But if I ask them to keep their hand up if they'd like to be more uncertain, they don't really feel comfortable with that, right? So at the end of the day, a 50-person crowd, maybe 2 or 3 people still have their hands up. You know, you can ask yourself how comfortable you truly are with uncertainty. And in the normal training that I do, in the normal kind of webinars I do that aren't in December and January, we look at specific examples that will prove to you that you're probably uncomfortable with uncertainty, in the sense that you always want to find the right answer, right? Even now on the call we've had so far, the design of these kind of conversations is let's get to the right answer as fast as possible, isn't it? So I've asked you to make a list of 3 things. everybody wants to get on the call, get the call done as fast as possible, get off the call at the end, and have an answer. So everybody wants to get the right answer as fast as possible, isn't it? And therefore, we are very uncomfortable with actually letting the creative process run the way it was designed. So this is my own part of the theory of why this happens. That's not just about the way the educational system is structured. And actually in the book that I'm busy, finishing up now, it gets into a lot more depth. But really simply, this is how the creative process works. It's a 3-step process that also has multiple steps in it. But the bottom line is we take stuff in, we think about it, and we then spit it back out, right? That's all it is. Even now, I'm saying stuff, you're thinking about it, you're then making a judgment about what I said. Is it good or is it bad what I said? Is it right or is it wrong? Does it fit into what you already know or not? All of that kind of stuff, right? Hopefully you come up with a new idea or many, and you then represent them and deliver them. 99% of the time, you go back to the beginning and do it again, right? Even in this conversation, you're doing that. If you're writing an email, you're doing that. Does that make sense? The problem that most of us have is this, and this is what I think why 5-year-olds have an advantage that they do. These 2 steps coming between the perception and the thought is an incubation period. Between the thought and the representation or expression is a marination period. So before we make a decision about the idea we have, we should let it sit. That's the way it naturally works. But most of the time, isn't it? Grown-up people have already got a huge amount of boxes in our minds about what's right, what's wrong, what works, what doesn't work, what we tried already, what we didn't try. All of those things which get in the way of us letting the idea settle. We select and decide very quickly based on what we already know. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Sorry?
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's quite revealing.
It's a critical, thank you. It's a critical point, right? Is that the creative process runs itself. The problem that adults tend to have is we tend to get in the way of it. Like almost all of us, almost all the time, right? And if we look at the incubation moment, it's the same problem, right? We rush, I mean, you'll know, Ingrid, because you do a lot of work, like you said, with training and with companies and so forth. Most companies start their brainstorming here, right? They start with, let's sit down and have some ideas. They don't do all the work to set their minds up to actually generate ideas. And something that, we will not get into in much depth here, but just to note it, the subconscious mind is what drives the creative process. And we do not really like the subconscious too much in our society, right? We pretty much all try to ignore it or beat it up, one or the other. So the incubation process, we generally skip as well, but most very well-known creative people, say Einstein, for example, notably always included in their daily routines and their processes time to incubate. So Einstein was famous for taking long walks. He was famous for playing the violin in between his studies. So he would work on a process and he would leave and go play the violin specifically in order to allow himself to not think about it, right? So I believe that the education system was precisely and well designed to effect the kind of thinking that we prefer, which is an uncreative process, right? It's a process in which we're worried about how fast we can get it done, how much we can get done, and therefore we get nothing done. And the results we end up getting are like the lists we made earlier in this conversation. So I want to go back now into the process, right? I said the most uncertain achievement for me in 2020 is making $1 million random profit. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I am doubtful that it will happen. It doesn't seem in line with what I've achieved. So I want to give us one small tool that can help us all do a little better with that before we get to the big tool. And that small tool is looking at goal setting in a very typical way, right? Are you guys familiar with SMART goals?
Yes, I use it all the time.
Okay, cool. So this will be real quick and easy. And Amantala, you've done this with me. So SMART C goals are simply something I added to it, right? And I'll get to what the C is in a second. So if I look at, in terms of SMART goals, if I look at how I'm going to achieve that bigger goal that I have, it would be to pitch 50 companies on the process we're selling and close on at least 1/3 of those companies. Deliver the workshop that's designed for individuals and entrepreneurs to at least 200 people and sell 10,000 copies of the book. Those are the basic, simple goals that I can make that are SMART goals, right? They're smart. They're specific, they're measurable. I believe they're attainable. I mean, pitching 50 companies is only 4 a month, 1 a week, right? Are they relevant? I believe so. Are they time bound? Yeah, I'm saying in the course of the year. I could break this down and be more specific, but it's essentially a SMART goal, right? So if you took your big goal that you said you want to achieve that's uncertain and made it into a series of 2 or 3 SMART goals, could you do that quickly now? And it's hardly relevant if they're the final ones you're going to end up working with going forward, but just to get something down. How long do you guys need for that?
Yeah, I got it.
Fantastic. Monthly, you good? I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay, so I like to encourage in a coaching environment or in a consulting environment the idea of the SMART C goal. And the C stands for celebrate, right? Most people, if in fact almost all people, do not celebrate achievement. Okay? And I'm going to guess that you guys don't either, even though you might think you do. So I'm not even going to talk about it yet. We're going to come back to it in a minute, right? But have a thought about this. What have you done to celebrate the goals you achieved last year that you put on your list already? Okay? So I just want to really quickly run through why celebration is so important, why I mentioned it here. Okay? The American Psychological Association says that celebration creates all of these things. Don't even have to read through this entirely, but it's all good stuff, right? Energy, health, you know, all the stuff we want. And teams increase trust and teamwork and values of the team. Even in leadership, celebrating as a team causes people to appreciate the leader almost, well, more than a third more than teams that don't do that, right? This guy here, Dan Pena, who looks a little bit crazy, but he's known as the $1 trillion man. So that sounds good, right? He says that he encourages celebration in his teams and his work because it strengthens our thinking and our bodies, tightens our networks, and positions the self as a winner, not only for others, but for yourself, right? And David Campbell, who runs a thing called the Center for Creative Leadership, makes a really good point. He says that without celebrations, life becomes an endless series of Wednesdays. Right? Nothing wrong with Wednesdays, but obviously the idea he's working with here is that it's a constant way of making a change and a shift so that you're actually getting somewhere and giving yourself the impression, the creation for yourself that you are actually getting somewhere in your process, right? Now, here's the question. Well, before I get to this question, the question I have for you is, just quickly, do you celebrate your successes?
No, I don't.
No, I don't either.
Okay, why not?
I don't know. The thing is, I just smile about it. I noticed that, okay, that was done. Yay, that's it. I need to, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
So I never really stop to say, oh, okay, do I go out? What do I do?
Yeah, Okay, would this list kind of cut it? You didn't earn it yet. There's still more to get done. You don't have time to celebrate. You don't have money to celebrate. It's embarrassing to do it if somebody sees you. Or you'll get to it.
Yeah. Or I'll celebrate when I get to a specific point.
Yeah, you didn't earn it yet, number one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question you want to address. And again, this is just one little step along the path to the end of this conversation, right? The question we have to deal with is, what have you done to celebrate your wins last year? Your answer you've both given me is not much, right?
Yes.
Now, celebration could be anything you want, right? It could be you get up and dance around for 30 seconds. That's all. That could be a celebration, right?
Okay.
You could go out and buy your friends a drink. You could go for a jog. Whatever it is that you celebrate. And here's the thing, that the reason I call it Smart C goals is that the idea is to design the celebration before you do the thing. So it's part of your goal.
Okay.
So on a daily basis, what I do is I set what I want to get done today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I then put down as what I'm going to do to celebrate when I get that done.
All right.
Right? And you can do the same thing for the week or the month or the year, right? You could already set down right now that when you get your A at the end of the year, you're going to go take yourself for a holiday for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You could do whatever you want. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you consider it a form of celebration. I mean, again, in the bigger training that we do, we look very briefly at some ideas for celebration that may be also weird, right? Things you don't think about. Like you might celebrate simply by posting on Facebook that you've achieved what you've achieved. Right? You might celebrate simply by calling one of your friends and telling them, look, I just want to tell you about this thing I did. I'm so excited, right? Depending on the level you want to give that celebration, depends on what you choose to plan into it. But here's the really big question. What have you done to celebrate the things you didn't succeed at?
That I didn't celebrate at all, because it's like, well, when I bombed, I was like, my goodness, why did I even do this?
Right. You didn't write 10 jokes a day.
Yeah.
Now, if every day you didn't write 10 jokes, you celebrated that you didn't get it done.
No ways.
No, why would you do that?
No ways.
Let me show you why you would do that. You ever heard of this guy?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very famous quote, right? And a very genuine quote. Thomas Edison literally did 10,000 experiments to get the light bulb to work. And preceding him, many people did thousands more, right? And in fact, even after he got it to work, it still didn't work. And there were more experiments because it didn't work well enough to sell it. He sold it, and then he had to fix the problem, like coming up with the answer. If he, after each of those failures to achieve that, actually thought, I failed. The question is, would he have achieved that? Right? So what I like to build into the plan is the celebration you're going to have whether you achieve it or not. Because the thought you're dealing with is an old thought. And I'm not going to go back to the picture of the boxes, but it's all based on the boxes you've built. And that's why I said earlier that if a child had the mind of an adult, they would never learn to walk. Because after 3 or 4 times of falling down, they would go, this doesn't work. But their whole mindset is not around that. They're not trying to succeed. They're just trying to walk.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yes, no, it's hitting home.
Yeah. So I mean, then when that child finally gets walking, it's exciting. But you know what? They're excited when they fall down too, aren't they? They don't fall down and go, and then finally figure out that after a few days they'll try again. No, they just keep going, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't experience it as failing. They experience it as part of the process they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, the reason I believe that we have those statistics we have, where 2% of us grown-ups remain creatively genius is that we have learned that there are certain things that work, certain things that don't. And the way that we approach things didn't work, we don't try it again, we try something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, ironically, we think we're trying something else, but it's all inside the context of the self that we already are. Therefore, it's not really new. It's actually something that seems different but isn't. That make sense?
Yes.
I just want to ask a question. Is this not very similar to moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset?
Very similar.
Okay.
The concept of a growth mindset is essentially based on the idea of overcoming our own limitations that we placed on ourselves, right? Is that how you understand it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So very similar. And in 2 slides, we're going to get to a conversation that you may or may not already have dealt with, right? But it's all about growth mindset because we are in the midst of a shift, right, in society that's been going on for 50 years. And we're all excited about it, calling it 4IR and everything, but it's really been going on for a long time. But it is a shift into which a growth mindset, as it's called, is the necessary mindset, right? So when we go back to the uncertain goal that you had, we asked the question, what do you have to do? And we made the SMART goals around that, right? But there's a problem with that. That's going to make it hard for that to really matter to you. And that's this. If I look at what I said is I have to get 20 companies out of, well, it's actually 50 down to a third, so I just made it 20 out of the 50. 200 people do my workshop, 10,000 people buy my book. That'll get me to have a R1 million profit. Then I will be what I want to be actually, which is, say, a profitable thought leader, right? So last year wasn't really that. This year, that's my aim, to become that, right? So if I asked you to put your process into this description, we already know what you want to have. So Ingrid, in your case, you want to have a community that is relevant and impactful. You've already made some notes as to what you need to do to make that happen, right?
Yeah, it's all going to fit under do.
Yeah.
There's no be there.
And you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get to the be quickly. Who will you be at the end of that? And it doesn't have to be you personally. It could be the company, right?
Sure. I can't articulate it.
Just throw words out. I'll help you.
So I've got a lot of shadow here because I actually don't want to say thought leader. A communicator that brings insight to other people, and that's a being. It's not a doing. It's the way that I am in everything that I do. I communicate and give insights.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes sense.
No, it does, and it's sometimes difficult to get the being right because communicating could also be something you're doing, right? But you want to be someone who can who's a community leader. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, but I don't want to say that out loud because it's too embarrassing, and there's an ego that goes with that.
Well, luckily there's only 3 of us on the call.
Yeah.
You just did say it. Well, I said it, but you said yeah. So I encourage you to go ahead and say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, go ahead and say it.
What was the word that you used? Because I wasn't thought
leader.
Community leader. Yes.
Okay. Any other word you would throw in? I think you said you don't want to say you're being insightful. You want to say you're a community leader that creates.
Is wise. So it's wisdom. There's wisdom.
Okay.
And
so
that's
wise
a being.
community
It's not
leader.
a doing.
And I get a sense also of a certain kind of trust, like a trusted leader.
I love that. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So a trusted and wise community leader. That's who you would be at the end of the year if you achieve all that.
Yes.
Great. That's useful, right?
Very.
Amantle,
Yes.
you'll be a professional comedian.
Yes. And
Mhm.
mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I'll be a professional comedian and yeah, a creative.
A creative professional comedian.
Yes.
They got it. Great. So we already know what you have to do to get to be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet we said it's uncertain.
Yes.
So what's in the way? Well, there's a lot of ways to approach that question. I'm going to approach it in a very simple way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this was what I said for me. So Amantle, what's the problem here? You know it because we did it.
Yes. The problem is getting the work. Is putting my head down and doing the work that needs to be done.
No, it's not.
Okay.
You need to come do the workshop again. You've forgotten everything.
Okay, what's the problem?
The problem is this. Life doesn't work the way we just said, right?
Okay.
This is the way life works. Right? If you look at any kind of psychological theories, we take actions based on who we are. So to do anything, you have to be first the thing that does it. So
Okay.
I put profitable thought leader there, but I didn't have to. The question I need to ask is, who do I have to be to do all those things on my list, right?
Yeah.
So if the things on my list are to get those companies, deliver the workshop to those people, and sell the book, who do I have to be? Well, I just found it more convenient to just put profitable thought leader, because that's in fact who I have to be to make that happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, Ingrid, can you see that if you were to be a wise and trusted community leader today, it would be a lot easier to take the actions on your list, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It actually drives that. It ties to the thing I said earlier about passion. So focus, consistency, and passion.
Yeah.
Because if there's passion, that's part of how I'm being, not doing, and that then drives the doing.
Yep. So you are actually a passionate, wise, trusted community leader.
Love it.
And the other two words, which I've kind of missed. Basically, that being would then drive the doing, right?
Yeah.
So here's the challenge. You already kind of know that. Maybe not so consciously, or maybe you didn't think of it that way, but you already said earlier, passion and all that, right? So for some reason, you're not being that. Now, I want to show you something. If I look back at the victories I had in 2019, right? And I say, who was I being in those victories? Well, I can quite clearly say, okay, in finishing my book, here's some things I was being. I was being innovative, right? I was being very ambitious, and I was excited. I was so excited to get that book done, right? So if you looked at the thing you got done last year that made you the happiest, what were you being that caused that to happen? Okay, just note that down, or some thoughts about it. Then if I look at the same thing in terms of in the thing I didn't achieve, who was I being? Well, if I look at the corporate thing, right, I can say I was being kind of timid. I wasn't making those calls. I wasn't developing those relationships. I was acting quite helpless. I really needed somebody to help me. I didn't have corporate experience. So for me, it was like, okay, I don't really know how to do this. And I was being quite selfish because I wasn't offering what I had to give to people that could actually use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you do the same thing for your best and worst of last year, you end up with something like this, right? Okay, on the one hand, I was innovative, ambitious, and excited, got my book done. I was timid, helpless, and selfish, didn't get the corporate stuff done. You guys have clarity for yourselves on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead and give me what you got. Who are you being in the good stuff? Who are you not being in the, or who are you being in the bad stuff?
All right. For me in the good stuff, I was just being a courageous human being. I wanted to do this comedy. I wanted to get up on stage, and that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
And then in my where I didn't do so good, I was just being chicken. You know, I was just I was allowing fear to get in the way of what I actually wanted to do, as well as laziness. You know, not putting ideas on paper.
So cowardly and lazy.
Yeah,
Okay, that sucks.
big time.
Mm-hmm. Ingrid, what about you?
The victory was vulnerability and openness.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't achieve was victimhood.
Ah, well, that's a bad one.
Yeah.
Okay, now watch this, right? What would have happened if this happened? If when I approached my book, I was timid, helpless, and selfish, and in approaching the corporate conversation, I was innovative, ambitious, and excited, would my results have been different?
Completely.
So same in your case, I imagine, right? If you were being a victim in the stuff that worked, it probably wouldn't have worked so well.
Yeah, completely.
Right? Manjula, if you were being cowardly and lazy in terms of performing, it definitely wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even stepped on the stage.
Right? So we can see how important the way we're being about something is.
Mm-hmm.
My entire year, the biggest success of my year was determined entirely by how I was about it. And look how different, in my case or your case, the way we were about those things was. So what that teaches us what is that I'm capable of being innovative, ambitious, and excited. I'm also capable of being helpless and selfish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by choosing which one I put into which place, I got different results. Now, there's really no reason I couldn't have been that way with everything. But somehow I didn't do that. So the question to ask is, who can we choose to be to achieve the goal that you're uncertain about? And we've already looked at that, right? We looked at if you were being, the wise, passionate, trusted community leader, what that would achieve. So it's easy, right? If I'm going to be timid, helpless, and selfish, I am not going to get 10,000 copies of my book sold and make $1 million profit. There's just no way it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to even do these things.
Mm.
I'm not going to go pitch a company every week if I'm being timid, helpless, and selfish, right?
Mm.
So it's not about what I'm doing, it's about how I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because if I wake up in the morning and I don't generate myself as the things that are going to cause me to cause those companies to not only to get there and have the conversations, but then once I'm having them to be the kind of person they want to hire. Right? Like I don't just come into this conversation we're having now without generating myself as somebody, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If I go into that conversation as innovative, ambitious, and excited, this looks a lot more likely, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? So there's one more step we're going to take to get you to a point where you have a tangible way of causing yourself to succeed this year.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, before we take that step, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, right? Number 1, are you clear on this? Do you have a be, do you have kind of thing that gives you who you want to be now that's going to generate your actions?
Yes.
Okay? And in that being, let's not forget that it's imbued with an attitude of celebration. That's a critical component of this, in my opinion, is that we want to understand that win or lose is not the point, because the minute that we start to judge this worked or didn't work, that being is not going to hold up, is it?
Okay.
Your tendency to make yourself into a victim is going to kick in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't actually get that you did not fail.
Yes.
Because you have the experience, we all have, of thinking we failed at something and the next day finding out it was the best possible result, right?
Yeah.
One of the things on my introductory slide about myself is a company called 4IR Solutions I started last year with 2 women, and we seem to be doing pretty well and making progress, but it kind of unraveled and fell apart. Today, very much today, I had a meeting with a much better partner for me, who we are now full speed ahead working together on developing what will be the most impactful and the most exciting creativity and innovation process. It's taking what I already do and adding a whole new dimension to it. And they have people I'm working with now have an incredible network and database and so forth, right? And the things we're looking to do are going to be much more interesting than what I was doing in that other company. But at some point, if I didn't keep myself in the process of realizing that everything that happens is positive, right? Everything that happens is part of the process, including my own failures, as long as I don't shift who I'm being to be a negative way of being.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
So the first thing
Yeah.
I'm asking you is, do you have this? Do you have this on your piece of paper? Not my thing, your thing. Do you have the?
Yeah.
You have a way of being that you're going to be in order to achieve some SMART goals that will cause you to have the result you want.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. Have I earned the right to give you about 10 minutes at most, a little bit of a pitch on what it is that I'm going to be doing in the next months that you might want to know about?
Sure.
Okay.
Cool. That's what I'm going to do. It's going to be very quick. So there's one more step we're going to take to give you a very clear path, right? I don't know why that slide is there. Okay. Basically, this is the way, and again, Amantle already kind of knows this, this is the way that the basic foundational innovation training we do works. We work through, the first step of it is looking at the way the creative mind works, some of the stuff I've showed you like this, maybe that's why it's there. And then we work through step by step a layer of process based a little bit on the hierarchy of needs and the idea that one step follows the next, and basically going through these different qualities. Right? I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about it right now. I'm happy to at any other point. It has been a very successful process for the people we've done it with. Amantle, actually, maybe you could take 30 seconds at the end of this to share what you got out of it. But here is, I'm going to send you also this entire slide presentation, which you can go back through and redo anything you want. So you can read these properly, but basically really good testimonials from people of all races and sizes. The next workshop we're doing is going to be March and April, Tuesday evenings. Doing the workshop, you would get the manual, which is kind of half of the book that I'm running. When the book is published, I'm going to replace it with getting the book, and then you just do that. You get a daily email throughout the entire process, which gives you a step-by-step process of a daily micro-learning that will shift your thinking on a day-by-day basis. We record each session, so if you miss the session, you can just watch it. And eventually, we're going to put together a website membership thing, at which point, when that starts, you'll get 3 years on that for free. This is worth about $1,000 based on other programs that we've looked at that are actually more. We don't charge that. We charge, well, hold on, before I say that, I'm including as a bonus in it, right, the digital book and the audio book of all the 3 books I showed you at the beginning. So one is the basic book that goes with the workshop, but also has a lot of other stuff on creative thinking and innovation and 4IR. The other 2 books are more kind of esoteric and fun around taking classical Asian texts and looking at how they apply to creativity. So that's about a $1,200 value, but we only charge $297 But because you guys are on the webinar, we're going to charge $147, right? And on top of that, because I hate sales conversations, so I'm going through this quickly. It's going to cost $147. There's the discount code. There's the place you can go and buy it if you want to. Those are the dates. All of this I'm going to send you so you'll have it. You don't have to take care of it right now. If you're interested in it, if you want to talk more about it, we can talk about it later. I'm also putting together a video series, as I mentioned to you. The original series that's going to go up by the end of this month is $97 value, but we're not going to charge that when we launch it. We're going to charge half price. But again, for you guys, you can have it for $17. It's practically like a no-brainer. It's pretty much free. But on top of that, if you decide to do the workshop, we'll just give you access to these videos as another bonus that wasn't on the list. All right?
Wow.
Here's the free gifts I'm giving you because you made it this far. Ingrid, thank you for staying on the whole call.
Thank you.
So I'm going to send you these slides. I'll also send you a link to this video. So if you want to go back through anything or you want to watch something again, you can do all that. The biggest free gift I hope you're going to get is that at the end of this webinar, you have something to work with that is a result for you, right? I'm also going to send you a document that has a few other exercises that you can look at that will help you on doing what you've already worked through. I think you should already have gotten the ebook, right? If you don't, I'll make sure you get that. And the discount codes that you get, which is also probably the best of the free gifts, is huge amounts of like half price on the training and almost free on the videos. In the future, I must be honest, on these webinar things, we'll get better free gifts because we'll have more stuff, right? But right now, it's some good stuff though, right? So that's it. That was my side pitch, right? Wasn't so bad, right?
Yeah, great.
No, not at all.
Okay. So I will ask you, please, I hope that you will consider joining into the workshop or get the videos, but I'll send you this and you can do it on your own free time. Now, let's go back to, because I am very determined that we finish on time and we have 10 minutes left. The question we've dealt with is who can you choose to be to achieve your goal, right? Now, I have gone back and changed the ways of being that I wanted to be. Because I thought about it and I thought, okay, those three things were based on what I thought for last year worked, right? But I don't want to get stuck on last year, so I kept excited. But I thought actually, if I want to be, you know, whatever the words are I use, cutting edge thought leader, etc., I need to be more collaborative. I need to find a way to work better with people than I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be really thoroughly confident in a way that I wasn't last year.
Yeah.
Right? So it touches on those things, but it's a little bit different. So what I ask you to do is take like 60 seconds or whatever to consider, is there anything else you want to change or add about the way of being that you think you need to take on? Just let me know if you decide you're fine or you've made the change.
Yeah, I've made a change. I've added the word intentional.
Ah, okay. Cool. That's a great word. Amantha, what about you? You good?
Yeah, I've added 2 words. I added to my being a professional comedian. I've added that confident, self-assured professional comedian.
Okay. Great. Now, as we said, we know that we're capable of being these things we've listed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also know we're capable of being something far different.
Yes.
So the big takeaway I want you guys to get from this is that the one new idea is not about being. Isn't that funny?
Sorry, say that again. The one is not about being.
Yeah, the one new idea we're going to leave this call with is not about being.
Okay.
The being is clarity. You know, it's a great idea, but we know that if we don't do certain things to encourage ourselves to be the way we want to be, we might not be that way, right?
Yeah.
And it seems almost contradictory because we just said to do something, you have to be a certain way, right? So the way of being we all want to be in order to be this way is we want to be certain.
Okay.
We don't like uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we don't like uncertainty ruins us because we don't get creative. In this case, the way we're going to be certain is by putting something in place as an action, right?
Okay.
And by being certain about that action, we are then going to take that action.
Mm-hmm.
And that action will give us the freedom to be the person we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I mean by that. There's a story about ourselves that's in the way of us being the way we want to be all the time. So in order to be the person I need to be, to cause the results that I want to cause, I know that there's a story about myself that people don't really believe in what I'm doing, right? There's a story about myself that I don't really quite believe exactly that what I'm doing is great. Even though, you know, the partners I'm working with now that I've told you about, even though we had long conversations about these concepts that we work with, and they've assured me many, many times that they fully buy exactly what we're dealing with. I have many times I tell a story to myself that thinks, I'm not really, I'm making it up, right? We all have a story about ourselves that is not necessarily a positive story, and it goes back to the idea of beating up our subconscious. There's a level at which our subconscious doesn't get to play because we have a story that tells our subconscious to calm down and sit down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is take on an action that will help us let our subconscious play. Because by being collaborative, confident, excited, it's going to be my subconscious that drives that. If I'm constantly trying to be that, it's never going to work, right?
Yeah.
So if I look at some ideas, and this is really just some ideas for now, I fully expect that after this call, you'll change your mind, right? And that's great. But for example, to be collaborative, well, I should really make sure that every month I have a meeting with my partners in which we really just talk about stuff, you know? Not like with a goal or try to solve problems. Just get together and have dinner. Share what is going on, right? And when I know already that when I go into the meeting on Tuesday next week to have a full half-day meeting with them about how we're going to structure things going forward, I'm going to say, hey guys, let's make sure that every month we go out for dinner or go to the beach or whatever. I don't know, there's no beach here, but you know what I'm saying, right? Let's just do something every month. Then I know I'm going to be causing myself to be collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. If I want to build my confidence, I can do something like make sure I attend Toastmasters. Right? I can make sure I do that. Put it into my schedule and do it. Right? Now, that's not going to, you can see what I'm saying, right? It's not going to cause me to get 20 new clients to go to Toastmasters. But it will build the confidence I need to be the person that can get 20 new clients.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And
Makes
finally,
sense.
for example, if I want to be excited, I need to actively engage with new people and do new things, right? So these are things I have to simply do. I don't have to want to do them. I don't have to, I have to just do them, not in order to get the results I'm trying to get, but in order to be the person I want to be. Right?
Okay.
And I can either take this down to one thing, in which case if I had to pull this all together, it would be engaging with people, right? Because I can kind of make everything else fit into that. I would say the one thing I have to do is to put a system in place that forces me on a regular basis to engage with people.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a webinar like this. I could say that once a month I have to have a webinar where it's live, and even if 2 people or 20 people come, it's me talking to people and having that interaction, right?
Okay.
Whatever that is, I can pick a thing that I have to do that isn't about trying to get a result, because we will tend to screw those things up. You'll say you want to get 10 jokes a day, but the 10 jokes a day are designed to give you the result of having a routine, right?
Yes.
But you've skipped over the person you need to be to write those jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of doing is just a suggestion basically of, yeah, you can try to generate yourself as the person you need to be, but it's hard to do that. It's a lot easier to do it if you take an action that is mandated by you that you're going to do. So can you guys pick at least one action that you can take on a regular basis that you're willing to actually commit to, that will cause you to be that person? Because that's
You
what
want us to share?
Sorry?
You want us to share or just think?
You can still think, or if you're ready, you can share. I mean, this is basically what we want to do, right? You want to take an action that's going to cause you to be a certain way. That being will then drive your actions and results. If you want to be peaceful, you can meditate. Then you'll be peaceful. Then you can do the things a peaceful person does. If you're ready to share, please do.
Yeah, so if there was one word, overarching word for being, it would be intentional action for me, and the doing would be on a weekly basis. So on a daily basis, understanding what I've achieved during that day, but actually on a weekly basis, reviewing myself, which I don't normally do, and then setting intentions for the next week.
Okay, so to be intentional, you're going to put in place a process of resetting your intentions every week.
Yeah.
And that process of resetting your intentions will then cause you to be an intentional person.
Yes.
Everything else you do on your list, you'll do with intentionality because you've built a practice that's going to cause you to be an intentional person.
Yep.
Now, is that a useful thing?
Very.
There you go. Monthly.
Yes. Okay. For me, sharing my material with my friends twice a week at work, friends / colleagues. The reason I want to do that is because it's going to help me in terms of internalizing the material. So because then I get it to perform it twice. I perform it the first time, I rehearse, and then perform it for the second time in front of them. So by the time I hit the stage, I'm at least far much more familiar and comfortable with what I'm about to put out. So it's not new. It's not, I'm not going out on stage for the first time per se.
So what I actually hear there, tell me if this is right, is that you're going to take the action of building a system into your life that has you practice your material on people so that you can build a courageous self.
Yes, yes, because that will give me feedback. If they do not laugh at the joke, then I'll be able to take bombing on stage way better than not having been exposed to it at all. Also, it would give me a chance to see what I can tweak before I hit the stage.
Which is what a professional would do.
Yeah.
Is that useful?
Precisely. Yes.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you. So that's the question we've asked, and that's the question you've answered. What's the single thing you want to do to cultivate the being you need this year, right? So for me, it's taking care of my relationships with people. I'm going to make sure that I do that on a regular basis, which manifests in a couple of different ways, right? But I'm going to take action on a regular basis to look at how am I relating to people. That will allow me to be the kind of person I need to be to take those other actions. You guys have your answers. These are all my contacts. You'll have all of them when I send you this in the morning. We're done. Thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to say to finish up?
All right. No, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, that was actually very helpful and useful and insightful. So I'm glad I stayed till the end.
I'm glad you stayed till the end too. You brought a lot of insight and a lot of intentionality.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Bye, Mantley. I wish you luck.
Thank you so much. Bye. All the best as well with what you're going to be doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Right. Cheers, Michael. Cheers, Sonia.